Sounds good. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for inviting me today. So I have been with the North Carolina NFIP program as the Eastern Branch Planner since April 1st of 2019. And prior to that, I worked for 5 years with the city of Wilmington as a planner and did all kinds of things, including floodplain management and development review for special flood hazard areas. And then prior to that, I worked for the town of Wrightsville Beach doing the same thing, just on a smaller scale. But when it comes to floodplain management, it was on a greater scale. But moving forward again to my current position, what I do on a daily basis is provide technical assistance to local communities who are managing their floodplain development programs and participate in the National Flood Insurance Program. In addition to that, we do trainings, we do floodplain management trainings for certified floodplain managers, real estate agents, surveyors, engineers, all kinds of things. And then we also help citizens when they have questions regarding a local community's floodplain management regulations. So basically, we want to keep the communities in the National Flood Insurance Program compliant with the National Flood Insurance Program so that those communities can benefit from the funding, and the citizens can also have the availability of the flood insurance for special flood hazard areas. So in a nutshell, that's what that is. So what I want to do today is talk to you guys about what North Carolina has as far as resources for not only insurance agents, but other industries and also citizens.
And it'll have everything.
So if we want to go ahead and get started, we can go to our next slide.
Sure. And if everybody can just host if everybody could just mute their phones, we are getting a little bit of backup. Are you seeing the next screen there, Eryn?
I am not. So it looks like it's just maybe not in presentation mode or anything. It's just on the first slide.
Let me try and get this.
Eryn, my name is Carrie Lang. I am Tori Manganelli's co-worker on the agency development team, and I actually live in Raleigh, North Carolina. So I'm very excited to hear what you have to say today.
Great. It's nice to talk to you.
Yeah, I wish I've been here actually for about going on 3 years, and I haven't been to Wilmington or Wrightsville Beach yet. I've been to a couple other beaches along the coast, but not those ones. And those are, the most popular ones that people go to around here.
Yeah, Wilmington is great because it's kind of in the middle of a couple different nice beaches. Wrightsville Beach is definitely the nicest beach, but then you have access to like Topsail, Surf City, and if you go south, you're right there by Curry Beach and Carolina Beach. So it's kind of in the middle of a lot of great things.
Yes, yep. I've been to Topsail and Oak Island. There's so many to choose from. I love living in North Carolina.
Absolutely. Oop, I can see it then.
Yeah, I'm just trying to see my screen's looking different than your guys's. Give me 1 second.
Okay.
I think I've just got too many of them opened. Are you seeing this next screen here? No.
I am seeing my face, and that's
okay, here we go. There we go. I'm getting it now. I apologize.
That's okay. We had to start doing trainings virtually, and our first one was a couple weeks ago through WebEx, and there was definitely some hiccups along the way, but it's one of those things you just kind of got to roll with it.
Yeah. And there's so many different platforms to WebEx, and you might have to have a login or subscription to it. So
yep.
No worries.
All right, here we go.
Okay, we still can't see if you're sharing, Tori.
I'm sharing now. Hold on one second.
Okay. Okay.
Is it pulling it up for you guys?
Yep,
Oh,
there you go.
Okay,
Good
there we
job.
go. Thank you.
Okay, I put this in here twice, one at the beginning and one at the end. I want everybody to have our contact information, not only so y'all can access us for questions, maybe mapping questions or elevation questions, but also if you have a client that is kind of looking for more information, you can hand these out to us. So Steve Garrett just got hired on as our new state coordinator. And Stacy Fuller is kind of a development planner. So she does a lot of the mapping part of the NFIP. So she's a great resource for technology and mapping and stuff like that. Terry Fox is our Western branch planner. And then Milton Carpenter is our central branch planner. So he's kind of in the Raleigh area for those of you who are kind of in that situation. And then of course I'm on the Eastern branch, which is basically everything east of 95. And then we do have an NFIP engineer, Jin Tao Wen, and he does a lot of our reviews for communities, no rise analysis. He also does the clearinghouse reviews for state projects. So next slide. I put this in here. I think we all know that recently we, not only North Carolina, but the United States in many different fashions have been impacted by some sort of event. Florence for me was the first time that I had to, in a 10-year period in this business, had to do damage assessment and go out during the storm and kind of get an initial impact to Wilmington. And that was not only scary for us being called out to do that, but also it was devastating to see what had happened to what I feel like is my home city. So Florence, so far, I believe for North Carolina had 45 deaths and $22 billion in damages. Upwards of 75,000 in that range. Structures were flooded. 5,200 people plus were rescued from flooding. And then 1 million customers lost power. This is devastating to me also because we've had storms every year since that time. And the impact to the communities in funding and recovery and all that is just huge. So I think the National Flood Insurance Program is, trying to build this resilience. So I think it's a great deal. Next slide. So some of the online resources that we're going to talk about today, FRIS, I'll go into that probably first, then we'll look at flood.nc.gov. Flood.nc.gov is pretty much houses everything that I'm going to talk about here, except for the two, FloodSmart and FEMA. They have their own websites, but you can access FRIS and FIMA and a lot of other information through flood.nc.gov. Okay, next slide. So I'm sure you all know, but I'd love to talk about this because NFIP wants to reduce loss of life and property. And by reducing rising disaster relief costs, that's huge. I was just kind of talking about that. And then the increased importance of hazard mitigation, which includes flood resistant construction, guide future development, and prohibit development in floodplains that would increase flood levels, say in a floodway or something like that. And it wants to restore and protect natural resources and functions of the floodplains. Those are, I grew up in Illinois. I grew up right on the Mississippi River. If you look at how wide that floodplain is between the bluffs, it's huge. And we all want to live right next to the water. And so that's one of those things where we have to be resilient and restore that function of those floodplains. And we want to decrease taxpayer funded disaster costs, and that's recovery costs. And then make federally backed insurance coverage available to those property owners. Thank you. Next slide. So North Carolina is a cooperating technical partner. That is an innovative approach to creating partnerships between FEMA and participating NFI communities, which are regional agencies, state agencies, tribes, and universities. that actually have the interest and the capability to become more active and participate in the FEMA flood hazard mapping program. Next slide. With that being said, in 1999, Hurricane Floyd hit. That was before I was ever in North Carolina. I was still in Illinois at that point in time, but it kind of highlighted our vulnerability to natural disasters and the need for updated mapping products and accurate mapping products. So in 2000, FEMA designated North Carolina as a cooperating technical partner, and that was formalizing an agreement between FEMA and North Carolina to modernize our flood maps. And then that led to the creation of the North Carolina Mapping Program, which is a big part of an assistance to the NFIP staff. And so as a cooperating technical state, the state assumed primary ownership and responsibility for the creation of the flood insurance rate maps for all of North Carolina communities. Next slide. So that spurred the creation of our Flood Risk Information System, or FRIS. You can see here, this is one of the big floods, and then the news anchor is actually using FRIS to show where a floodway is. Next slide. The really cool part of going digital is the clarity and the point and click capability of having FRIS at your fingertips. So the old maps, they were great. They served a purpose. They did show where your flood hazards were, but it was really hard to kind of pinpoint where the structures were located in proximity to the actual flood lines to say, hey, it was in an AE or it was in a B or X zone. Now it's pretty clear. Obviously, there's some mapping things that could create a small amount of error where the location of the building footprints are. But that's when you say, hey, as far as a floodplain administrator would go, you need to get a survey to make sure that this building footprint is not located within the actual AE flood zone or an X zone floodway, things like that. Next slide. So to start with, if you go to flood.nc.gov, you're going to get this page. All you have to do is click on North Carolina and it will pull up the next slide. And so you'll have all of the different counties. So at this point, you can go ahead and put in an address, or you can just kind of point and click onto a county and it'll bring up that county. It'll kind of zoom in on it, and then you can actually kind of click to a city or jurisdiction, or you can put an address. What I would like to say about the addresses is that local community addressing, 911 addressing, and Google addressing are kind of, that makes it hard to actually zoom in on the product. So if you can't get the address to go, generally I put the city behind it or a zip code or the county that it's in, and it generally will go there. If it's something that's very rural or brand new, it's not probably going to be in the system. So you will have to kind of zoom based on a different map. Like I do Google quite a bit, just kind of background information for those of you that might use this. Next slide. All right, so if you zoom in, we're zoomed in over Wilmington, and this is going to show you that this is a jurisdiction. So this is a Wilmington jurisdiction. It's kind of shaded in yellow. If you zoomed in further, that coloring is going to go away. But somebody point and clicked right here in the Kings Grant area in a flood zone, and it automatically popped over on the right-hand side that it is in an AE flood zone. The flood source is Smith Creek, and the base flood elevation is 10.3. It does tell you the county and the political area. I mean, if you kind of scrolled it down on this right-hand side, it would actually show you the address that you've pinpointed. And in most situations, there's actually a link to the Google image of when this was created. So it'll bring up the actual house for you.
If you unplug it, no, yeah, what you have to
okay, next slide. All right, so I pulled this up because I use this quite a bit. So if you will go into the layers, and I'll show you how to get into the layers a little bit later. This you can put on the layer that's a political area. A lot of times when you're zoomed out, you can't see the yellow shaded jurisdiction area. So this political area will show you boundaries between counties, cities. It'll even show ETJs on here, so you'll know which jurisdiction it falls under as far as contacting local permitting officers, things like that. Next slide. So I'm going to go through the symbology. This is pretty clear to me, but I've been using it for quite a while. So the yellow area here is what is clicked on. There's a structure clicked on. You can see over on the right-hand side, it does say that it is a 0.2% annual chance flood, which is a shaded X zone. And then over here on the left-hand side, if you clicked the legend, which is the little box in the middle with the little things, and I'll show you that a little bit later too, but it will show you what that means, and it'll kind of give you a definition of it. Also on the right-hand side, you'll see the little eye mark next to the yellow 0.2% annual chance flood. If you click on that eye, it will also give you information on what that 0.2% annual chance flood is. Next slide. So it is clicked on currently right now. This striped area is the floodway. Anything within that shaded area is considered to be in an area where there might be high velocity floodwaters. And so they have to have a little bit different development standards and no rise analysis. The blue area adjacent to that is just a normal AE zone. And those would have some developmental regulations as well. The shaded floodway is also an AE. So those development standards would still apply. It would just also have the floodway development standards attached to that as well. Next slide. This is kind of a coastal symbology. So the green area is going to be your various V zones pinpointed here. And it does actually, it's clicked on a V zone structure and shows that it does have a base flood elevation of 14. The blue zone, again, is an AE flood zone. Next slide. This is where we're going to see where you can turn on your layers. And this arrow is pointing to the different map layers. And so you can turn on and off these layers by clicking in each one of these, like say flood zones or river flood depths, things like that. Okay, next. Okay, so I'm not sure if you would be interested in the flood insurance studies, but those are also accessible through FRIS, and it would be located over on the right-hand side under the FIS reports. And basically all you have to do is click on this FIS report builder, and it brings up a tab, and you can actually click on all the different sections of that flood insurance study, or if there's specific sections that you'd like to see, then you can just click on those. So you can build the whole entire report, or you can just pinpoint which sections are there to look at the data you need, which is super handy. Next slide. You can also view and print the map extension. So you can do the current view over here. So it would be on the right-hand side again. You would go to map export and figure out which kind of view you would like to see. It will also do the regulatory flood map, which shows all of the mapping product, the index date, things of that nature. Next slide, please. So this section to me is super important for property owners, developers. This is going to show that your mapping product has a preliminary issuance, and so the maps may be changing. Over in the right-hand corner here where I have it pinpointed, it says preliminary. If you hit that, it would go back to effective. And So you can see here on the left and on the bottom, this is preliminary. It says it's preliminary. And if you click on it, it will tell you what that preliminary data is. There is also a panel that has already gone effective. It's shaded over and it does say effective. So it's pretty clear on what's going to be coming up and what has already been adopted. And you can toggle back and forth between those views. I also want to show you right next to that preliminary tab, there is a Who Am I? One is just going to be a general and one is going to be advanced. If you do toggle to the advanced section, it's going to add on some different reports that you can print out. It's going to provide you with more data as far as letters of map amendment, how this map was created, if you want to download things. So there's an easier step, and then there's a more advanced step depending on where you lie. Go ahead and next slide. Very good. This one may be very helpful for your industry. This is a view of the changes since the last map or last firm. So this is you have to be in the preliminary view to get this layer. And if you'll just toggle to the next one, it'll bring up a new slide here. There you go. So if you go to your layers and you go all the way down to the bottom and hit changes since last firm special flood hazard area, this is what pops up. And then hit it again and another thing will pop up. There we go. So this is the legend for this section of the map, and it will tell you what the green is a decrease in flood BFEs and the red is an increase. It kind of looks pink on the map. And then if it's like an orangey, there's negligible changes or no changes. So this may be helpful to your clients and potentially yourselves in looking up flood zones. Next, thank you. Our partners at Iredell County have put together a step-by-step instruction document on how to use each feature in FRIS. And so if you're interested in having that in your back pocket when you go to use this sometime in the future, this would be a great document for you to have. And it does show you how to do absolutely everything in FRIS. So thank you, Iredell County, for putting that together and allowing us to share the link to that document.
Eryn, can I have a quick question? Do they need any kind of a login for FRIS? Or does it
You do not need a login. Okay. No. If you Google FRIS NC, it'll come right up and it will it'll pop up to that first page, which is the United States, and then you click on North Carolina.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm glad that you asked about a login to FRIS. This is another way to access FRIS. Flood.nc.gov is a plethora of things. And not only do we have the desktop version, we do have a mobile version. And so it just kind of makes it smaller and compact and kind of point and click at the same time. So this is how you would get to flood.nc.gov, and then NC Flood would be for your mobile device. And if you just bookmark the page on the mobile device, you can have it right at your fingertips. Next slide. So the features of flood.nc.gov, you can search by topic, you can search by discipline, and then we also have quick links to go to our FRIS website, and then also FIMAN, which is the flood inundation mapping and something in network, maybe in network, mapping and network. I always get it wrong, but we'll go over that shortly. So next slide. So if you went in and searched an address, and since I'm in Wilmington, we did 1413 Airlie Road, Wilmington, and it popped up on a structure and provides you with the flood hazard, which is just the flood zone. It also provides you with an estimate of insurance premiums. I'm fairly certain those are based on older premiums. So it's only going to give you an idea, or the homeowner an idea of what they're looking at as far as insurance. But then there's these other areas you can look at as far as mitigation, insurance impacts, and we'll go over each one of those. Next slide. So if you click on impact, this will pop up, and it is an actual toggle on a depth. So say you were going to be flooded 1 foot, it would give you a building and contents potential estimate on what the impact to that structure would be. This example is 4 feet. And so with this, it also has a heated square footage of the building, which helps with the value determination, and total damage to this structure would be upwards of $600,000.
Wow.
Next slide. So if we clicked on a higher level, it's going to show you that this was a 6 foot elevation inundation into the structure. If you go back to your flood depth panel, you'll see that there's other flood zones or types of storms. So a 10-year flood shows that it might be 6 feet. A 6 foot inundation from a 10-year storm would cost upwards of $750,000 or $800,000. And again, these are just estimates, but it is a good tool to show risk and get interested property owners to really consider flood insurance and understand the need for flood insurance. Next slide. All right, so the next tab is, again, insurance information. It just tells you coverage types. You can put in the building coverage, the contents coverage, the building square footage and contents, and then if there's more than 1 floor. So it just lets you kind of manipulate the building information and coverage information to show what those premium costs would be. Next slide. So mitigation, a lot of times people call and want to know what they can do to help mitigate the structure to make it more safe, and also to lower insurance premiums. And so this is kind of a great tool to show them what the cost benefit may be for doing something to their structure, like put in flood vents, elevating the structure, things of that nature. And unfortunately, this one is in such a location that it doesn't have any options that would help it be cost effective. So next slide.
Hey, Eryn, there's a quick question in the chat box. Is this also found at, on the FRIS website?
There are toggles that I did not go over. So on that right-hand side on FRIS, there's different things that you can go into. And one of those is the risk, and another one is insurance. And so yes, a basic version is also on the Total FRIS website. Okay,
great. There's so much you can do on this. This is great.
I know, it's insane. And so now going to the next section on this flood.nc.gov is a mapping tab. And so what you'll glean from this part is in the mapping program is what counties have already gone preliminary in their mapping, which ones are effective, which ones are under study. You know, all these different colors of these counties will kind of show you, and there's a legend over here with those little arrows that you can see what those colors mean. So I think this is a great tool also to help property owners understand where they're at in the mapping program. Next slide. So you also can find a plethora of documents. I will be honest, it's not as intuitive as sometimes when I'm searching documents, it's not as easy to find as what I would like it to, but it does provide different types of documents that you can search. And you can kind of see down here, there's letter of map changes, issue papers, stuff about the NFIP, contacts, facts, and fact sheets. these are all documents that might help a property owner in understanding what they can do to help their property, or some sort of an industry leader in developing a piece of property, things like that. Next slide. So not only do we have documents and mapping, we also post our training events on here. And so we would also post like ASFPM's, they have yearly workshops, they have conferences. This year, things have been really strange. So a lot of things have not been posted on here. But we're hoping now that we have a new NFIP planner, and we're hoping that COVID will be under control soon, and we'll get back out into the communities and start doing some more trainings, that we'll be able to post all those on here and have this available for anybody who's looking for training opportunities. Next slide. This is a great tool for floodplain managers in the local communities. It's going to give you a lot of information. Over on the right-hand side, it's an NC Flood quick guide. This is really like how to prepare before a storm, during a storm, and after a storm. We put model ordinances up there. So the model ordinance is taken from the Code of Federal Regulations. We put it into a readable document, and we provide that to our communities and say, this is what you would need to, at a minimum, adopt to be compliant with NFIP. So those are over there. FEMA elevation certificates, all of our executive orders, no rise guidance. Next slide. It also does have a page to help direct people on what forms do they need for letter of map changes, frequently asked questions, fact sheets. Letter of map changes can be quite confusing to somebody who doesn't deal with it on a daily basis. So we're trying to just kind of help people understand what the process is and why it would be beneficial to them. Next page. Also mitigation, we have information on mitigation. There's so many documents over on the right-hand side that is, they can quickly reference to see what mitigation efforts would be helpful to them. And then next slide. So we went straight to the industries tab over on the top, and then on the bottom, you can see that there's several different professions that we've outlined. Insurance agents is one of those. So if you click on that, we'll go to the next slide. It provides information that might be helpful not only to insurance agents themselves, but also property owners looking to understand what is going on with insurance and how the premiums are determined. So this could be a resource for somebody who is wanting to learn more about North Carolina flood insurance and trainings and things like that. So this is that link. Next slide. Okay, so if you'll go back a slide real quick, I apologize. Over in the top here, you can see go to FRIS site. This is a direct link to FRIS, the big desktop FRIS. That is also a direct link to FIMAN, which is on the far right-hand side. That is this next tool that I'm going to describe. So we'll go to the next slide. Okay, so FIMAN, it is Flood Inundation Mapping and Alert Network. I forgot the alert part previously. So this shows you, if you're zoomed out and not zoomed in on this particular location, it will show you all the different flood gauges that have been installed throughout North Carolina and that are actively participating in monitoring flood levels, water levels. So I have zoomed in on a particular gauge here and on a particular location. It happens to be in Beaufort, North Carolina, near Pybers Island. And there are several things that you can do. Right now, when I took this clip of the screen, there was no flooding really occurring. And so what it really says, it gives you stream elevations, is it rising, what the peak stages are, damage assessment impacts. There's different toggles that you can get onto, but the middle one will provide you with a scenario if floods are happening and what the different elevations are. So let's go to the next page. So this is on the scenario page, and currently it shows that it is at an elevation of 12. And you can see that this blue area is out of its banks, and it looks like it's probably impacting and flooding some areas. And so if you'll toggle one more time, and we'll be able to go fast here, but you can see how that blue area moved, and you can keep going, keep going. It's going to go all the way over to the right. Right. So, and that's all the way up. So what happens here, once you get buildings involved in a flood scenario, it shows you what the impact of those buildings are. So it tells you how many feet are within those buildings. And then you can come over to the right-hand side and see there's 1,172 buildings that are impacted by this flood stage. And it tells you the amount of money that is involved in that. So it calculates damages. And so when you pull that up, there's a whole report that you can make from just seeing what the scenario is. And emergency managers use this tool quite a bit, forecasters. If you're trying to present to your local councils, you're going to use this tool to say, hey, this is what our risk is. This is why we need to be more resilient in our development. So this is a super handy tool for local jurisdictions. And I think also maybe for insurance agents. I'd be interested.
I think it would be great for insurance agents.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see how you guys can use it. Next slide. So FloodSmart.gov, do you all use FloodSmart.gov? Do you direct your agent or your citizens and customers to FloodSmart?
We do.
Okay.
NFIP, we definitely direct our agents and anyone we can to. It's cited on all of our webinars and everything. That's
awesome. So this, I can't tell you how many times in the last couple of weeks I have told citizens to take a look at this page. So this is a great tool. And I won't go into all the wonderful things because you all know about it. Next slide. Okay, I have a question for you. Who would you contact to see if there's an elevation certificate on file?
You guys, if you want to put this in the chat box too, if anybody wants to just type it in real quick, their answers.
And I can't see that, so let me know what they're typing.
Yeah, Carrie will holler them out.
I will. I don't have anyone in there. Oh,
there we go.
Flood Customer Service Center, Building or Planning Department.
Very good. Okay, I'm going to stop there because that's it. Go ahead and toggle one more. So your local permitting jurisdiction is going to be who you're going to call. It could be the building department. It could be the planning department. It could be maybe on the website, there's a floodplain administrator identified in their contacts or whatever. That's where you're going to find local permitting or the elevation certificates. We do get phone calls from agents asking the state if we have kind of like a big file of elevation certificates, and we don't. It would be massive, either in paper format or in a database. So we don't. And that, if you'll toggle to the next slide, that is one of the requirements of a participating community, is to maintain all flood development documentation into perpetuity. And that does include elevation certificates, which is probably the primary floodplain development document to show compliance. And then even if there's not a permit on file for the structure, the property owner may have provided an elevation certificate to the permitting or planning office for their records. I always asked property owners if they, for some reason, found an elevation certificate on their structure, they refinanced and had to get an elevation certificate, purchased insurance, that if they got that certificate, they needed to send it to the local jurisdiction so we could keep it on file, because I was surprised at how many phone calls we got from either property owners, insurance agents, to see if there was one on file. So if you're ever in speaking with your clients and they do provide an elevation certificate, throw in there that they should probably provide it to their local jurisdiction. It would be super helpful for future property owners or inquiries or whatever. So next slide. I told you I'd provide this twice just so everybody has our information. I hope that you guys call us if you need anything. Every single one of these people that I work with are great and wonderful. Our new NFIP coordinator, Steve Garrett, I think is going to be wonderful. He's brand new to the job, but he did a letter of map change before. He was the coordinator for North Carolina. So he's pretty knowledgeable in a lot of aspects of floodplain management. So if you have any questions, I am done.
Eryn, I just want to ask the group, where is everybody exactly located? Is everyone here from the state of North Carolina, or where are your customers from? And you can, again, write that in the chat box. Oh, Gardner, okay, this is like so close to me. This is exciting. Beaufort, okay, cool. So we had Gardner and Beaufort. Anyone else want to just share where they're from? I'm sorry?
It's Beaufort in North Carolina.
Beaufort. Okay, you can tell I'm not from here. Charlotte. Cool.
Does anybody have any questions on any of the information that Eryn presented, or anything that she didn't present that you'd like to ask her that maybe is something that she specializes in? Eryn, it is so awesome to be able to get the perspective from somebody that lives and works in the community, and the stuff that you showed us is amazing. I was sitting here thinking of all the different ways that agents can use it to show their customers where they're at risk and what the risk is and how it will affect them, and really kind of driving that home where it makes it a reality. So this was really, really useful.
Very good. I'm so glad. And I would be interested in, maybe in the future, if we do another one of these, just to see how people have used it. It could be a good question to ask for sure.
Absolutely. We will definitely follow up.
Eryn, I was going, oh, yes, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Will we be getting a copy of this by any chance?
Tori has a copy. I would be more than happy for her to make that a PDF and send it out.
Great. If it's okay with you, Eryn, I will definitely share it with everybody.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay.
And
Absolutely.
Jessica, that's also recorded too. So if you check out our website, our marketing department is awesome, and they put it right up on there with we call Eryn, she's one of our expert speakers. So if you have trouble finding that, go ahead and put that in the search box, and we'll have this whole recording with the questions on there as well. We have one more question in the chat box. Great. Oh, Abigail just mentioned, especially the property risk and insurance cost estimator. She likes that feature, it looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And Eryn, I do have a question actually too, and this might be a silly question, but is FRIS like really marketed to anyone, specifically, or do you know of anyone who's really using it all the time in their day-to-day kind of business? I know you mentioned developers, but I'm wondering if like real estate agents, do they use this while selling?
I just did an insurance agent workshop, probably beginning of September, I think. And that was one of the things that we try to market to them as well. Who's really using it on a daily basis is floodplain administrators for local communities. Mm-hmm. We know that the local communities are going to take the GIS information and upload it into the county maps, which is great. But to have the actual FRIS website with the actual data symbolized, accurate on the page versus taking that data, uploading it into a county system. I have seen where counties haven't symbolized things correctly. We're catching that as we're doing trainings and things like that. Mm-hmm. But I think just floodplain administrators and real estate agents, I had a lot of calls after that presentation because they were super happy about having that at their fingertips, just so they could go, oh yeah, this one's in a floodplain,
Right. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if we don't have any more questions, Eryn, thank you so much. Eryn, it was put out to all different people out there, and you skipped it up real quick and volunteered to do this for us, and you put together an amazing presentation. So we appreciate your time and your dedication here. So that was awesome. Thank you so much.
I'm so glad to be a part of it. Thank you guys for having me.
Have a great
good day. Yeah, thanks.